The ship's alarm cut through the silence like a knife. Dr. Elena Rodriguez jolted from her half-sleep, her fingers already moving across the holographic control panel before her brain fully processed the warning. Kepler 452 bits' surface flickered to life on the main screen, a world of swirling gray and deep purple landscapes that looked more like a bruise than a planet. Unexpected life sign detected, the ship's AI announced in its calm, emotionless voice. Proximity alert. Single biological entity. Elena's heart raced. After 3 years of deep space exploration, unexpected life signs were rare. Most planetary surveys ended in disappointment, endless rocks, toxic atmospheres, and silent landscapes. But something was different this time. She grabbed her standard first contact kit, a universal translator, medical scanner, protective suit, and a small collection of communication devices designed to bridge impossible gaps. The airlock hissed as it prepared her descent module. Outside, Kepler 452 bits' strange atmosphere swirled with metallic particles that glinted like scattered diamonds. The landing was smooth, too smooth. Elena knew something was wrong the moment her boots touched the ground. The landscape looked both alien and familiar, rocky terrain interrupted by strange crystalline formations that seemed to pulse with an inner light. But something else was here, something alive. A movement caught her eye. 50 meters away, a figure lay partially hidden behind a large crystal formation. At first, Elena thought it was a rock formation. But then she saw it move. Breathe. Hello, she called out, switching her suit's external speakers on. The universal translator hummed to life, ready to convert her words into any known language. No response. Cautiously, she approached. Her medical scanner worked overtime, analyzing the atmosphere, scanning for potential threats. The readings were strange. High levels of unknown radiation, atmospheric compositions that shouldn't support life. And yet life was right in front of her. As she got closer, she realized the figure was definitely not human. Definitely not like anything she had ever seen before. It was a female. At least, Elena's brain registered it as female based on some fundamental characteristic that transcended human understanding. Her skin wasn't skin at all, but something that looked like living crystal, shifting between deep blues and soft silvers. Multiple limbs were curled protectively around her body, and strange organic technology seemed embedded directly into her flesh. She was wounded. Badly. Elena's medical training kicked in. She approached slowly, hands raised to show she meant no harm. "I'm here to help," she said, knowing the translator would do its best to convert her words. The alien's eyes opened. They were nothing like human eyes. Massive, with multiple irises that seemed to rotate and shift like complex mechanical devices. For a moment, Elena felt like those eyes were looking through her, not at her. And then something unexpected happened. The alien began to cry. Not with tears like humans cry. These were sounds, musical, painful sounds that seemed to vibrate through the very ground. Sounds of grief, of recognition, of something so profound that Elena felt her own chest tighten in response. The universal translator struggled. Fragments of meaning flickered across its display. Asterisk found. Finally. Hope. Asterisk. Asterisk last. Chance. Asterisk. Asterisk. You are the one. Asterisk. Elena dropped to her knees beside the alien. Her training, her years of scientific study, her entire understanding of first contact protocols, all of it seemed to dissolve in that moment. Something extraordinary was happening, and she was right in the middle of it. The medical lab buzzed with an energy that felt more like magic than science. Elena sat motionless as Zerakade researchers moved around her, their crystal-like bodies reflecting light in impossible patterns. Holographic displays surrounded her, showing layers of genetic information that looked more like complex musical scores than biological data. Dr. Xera Lin, the chief Zerakade geneticist, approached with a look of barely contained excitement. "We have never seen anything like this," she said, her multiple mechanical eyes focusing and refocusing on Alina's genetic readout. Alina's family history wasn't typical. Her mother, Maria Rodriguez, had been a groundbreaking geneticist specializing in rare genetic disorders. Her father, James Chen, was a humanitarian worker who had dedicated his life to supporting communities with complex genetic challenges. Their work had taken them to the most remote corners of Earth, studying genetic variations that most scientists would have ignored. Now, those years of work seemed to converge in Alina's very DNA. The holographic display showed something extraordinary. Alina's genetic structure had unusual markers, adaptive sequences that could interface with multiple biological systems. But it was more than just genetic flexibility. There were quantum-level resonances that matched the Zeraka's own biological network. "It's like your genetic code has been waiting to connect with us," Xerilyn muttered, more to herself than to Alina. The Zeraka researchers had been searching for a solution for generations. Their quantum memory network was breaking down, and traditional genetic repair methods had failed repeatedly. They needed something more, a fundamental reimagining of how genetic information could be stored, transferred, and healed. Alina's genetics seemed to be the key. Her mitochondrial DNA showed adaptations that were almost impossible to explain. Traces of genetic modifications that seemed to have occurred naturally over generations. Her mother's decades of research into genetic resilience had somehow created a biological blueprint that could interface with the Zeraka's quantum memory system. "Your family's work," Lyra Sol said, stepping closer, "was not just scientific research. It was preparation." The lab fell silent. Xerilyn projected a complex holographic model. It showed Alina's genetic structure overlaying the Zeraka's quantum memory network. Where other genetic samples would show complete incompatibility, Alina's DNA seemed to create bridges, connections, pathways of healing that no one had ever imagined possible. "We can repair more than just genetic code," Xerilyn explained. "With your genetic structure, we might be able to restore cultural memory, rebuild the connections that have been breaking down for generations." Alina felt something shift inside her. This was more than a scientific discovery. This was about survival, about hope. The researchers began to explain the full magnitude of their discovery. The Zeraka weren't just losing their ability to reproduce. They were losing their collective consciousness. Each generation became less connected, less capable of maintaining the intricate quantum memory network that defined their entire civilization. Alina's unique genetic structure could potentially reverse this process. "But how?" she asked. Lyra Sol's mechanical eyes seemed to look through her. "By becoming a bridge," she said, "between what was lost and what can be restored." The lab hummed with potential. Generations of Zeraka research, her parents' life work, her own unexpected journey. Everything was converging in this moment. Something extraordinary was about to begin. The mirror showed someone Alina no longer recognized. Her skin had changed, not dramatically, but subtly. Thin, crystal-like threads ran just beneath the surface, catching light in ways human skin never could. Her eyes, once a simple brown, now shifted with multiple irises, moving and changing like the complex mechanical eyes of the Zeraka. She was becoming something more than human. The quantum memory connection had done more than heal the Zeraka. It was transforming her at the most fundamental level. Memories that were not her own now lived inside her. Generations of Zeraka experiences, emotions, and knowledge flowed through her consciousness like living rivers. Lyra Sol watched from across the room. "The connection goes both ways," she explained. "You are not just healing us. We are healing you." Alina's scientific mind struggled to understand. Her brain tried to categorize, to analyze the impossible transformation happening to her body and mind. But this was beyond traditional scientific understanding. She could feel the memories of entire Zeraka generations, their hopes, their fears, their moment of discovery, their slow, painful decline. Each memory was more than just information. It was a complete experience, alive, breathing, transforming her with every passing moment. Her parents' life work suddenly made sense. Maria Rodriguez, her mother, had always been fascinated by genetic resilience. James Chen, her father, had dedicated his life to understanding human adaptability in the most challenging environments. They had prepared her for this moment without even knowing it. The research facility had become her home. The Zeraka were no longer alien beings. They were family, connected at a level deeper than blood, deeper than species. The prophecy was never about a simple cure. Lyra Sol said, her multiple mechanical eyes focusing on Alina. It was about transformation. Alina's new abilities were extraordinary. She could see quantum connections that were invisible to both humans and Zeraka. She could feel the emotional currents that ran through their quantum memory network. Where there were breaks, she could see pathways to healing. But the transformation was not without cost. Her human memories began to change, blend, become something new. Her childhood, her scientific training, her entire understanding of reality was being rewritten at a quantum level. Zera Lin, the lead Zeraka geneticist, monitored her transformation carefully. "You are becoming a bridge," she explained, "not just between species, but between ways of understanding existence." Alina could now communicate with the Zeraka in ways no one had imagined possible. Not through language, not through technology, but through a direct quantum-level connection that carried entire lifetimes of experience in a single moment. Her body was changing. Her mind was expanding. She was becoming something entirely new. Lyra Sol approached her, placing a crystal-like limb on her shoulder. The touch carried generations of memory, of hope, of survival. "We are not just saving our species," Lyra Sol said. "We are creating something entirely new." Alina looked in the mirror again. The reflection showed someone who was neither fully human or fully Zeraka, something in between, something more. The transformation was complete, and everything was about to change. The healing chamber looked like nothing Alina had ever imagined. It wasn't a medical room. It was more like a living organism, walls that breathed, surfaces that shifted and pulsed with an inner light. Crystal-like structures grew and moved around her, responding to her presence in ways that defied human understanding. "This is not like human medical treatment," Hexeralin explained, her multiple mechanical eyes shifting colors as she spoke. "We will be connecting your genetic network directly with our quantum memory system." Alina took a deep breath. The risks were enormous. One wrong connection could destroy her mind, or worse, cause catastrophic damage to the entire Zeraka genetic memory. The first stage was subtle. Thin, crystal-like tendrils emerged from the chamber walls, moving with a life of their own. They weren't mechanical. They weren't purely biological. They were something in between, living technology that seemed to think and feel. These tendrils began to connect with Alina's body, not through traditional medical interfaces, but through a quantum-level connection that merged biological information in ways no human scientist had ever conceived. She felt everything. Memories that were not her own began to flood her consciousness. Generations of Zeraka experiences crashed through her mind like waves. The birth of their first quantum cities. The moment they discovered their unique memory network. The slow, painful realization of their species' decline. But these weren't just memories. They were living experiences. Alina's scientific training fought to understand what was happening. Her brain tried to categorize, to analyze, to make sense of the impossible connection. But the Zeraka healing process was beyond traditional scientific understanding. Emotional healing is genetic healing, Lyra Sol had told her. Now Alina understood what that meant. Each memory carried emotional weight. Each genetic connection was more than just biological information. It was a complete experience. Pain, joy, hope, loss, all transferred at a quantum level. The chamber around her began to change. The walls became transparent, showing complex genetic networks that looked like living, moving star systems. Alina could see her own genetic structure interacting with the Zeraka network. Where there were breaks, Her DNA seemed to create bridges. Where there was damage, her genetic markers began to repair. Lynn monitored the process, her multiple eyes tracking billions of quantum-level interactions every second. "Remarkable," she muttered. "Absolutely remarkable." Alina's body was doing something impossible. Her genetic structure wasn't just repairing the Zereke network. It was learning from it, adapting to it, creating new pathways of healing that no one had imagined possible. Hours passed, or maybe days. Time became meaningless in the healing chamber. When she finally emerged, Alina was different, not just physically, but fundamentally. Her eyes held memories of generations. Her genetic structure had been rewritten in ways that connected her permanently to the Zereke quantum memory network. "The first stage is complete," Lynn said, her voice carrying a mix of scientific precision and emotional wonder. Lyrasol stepped forward. Her mechanical eyes looked different now, more alive, more connected. "You are not just helping us," she said. "You are becoming part of us." The healing had begun, but this was only the beginning. The holographic display filled the conference room with ghostly blue light. Alina stood transfixed, watching generations of Zereke history unfold before her eyes. Lyrasol's quantum memory had shared more than just images. It had downloaded an entire civilization's genetic and cultural history. "You must understand," Lyrasol said, her crystalline body shifting colors as she spoke. "This is not a simple disease. This is a fundamental breakdown of our entire species." A hologram showed population charts that made Alina's blood run cold. Each generation was smaller than the last, not just in numbers, but in genetic diversity, in cognitive capacity, in the very essence of what made the Zereke alive. Their reproduction was failing at a molecular level. "We have tried everything," Lyrasol continued. Her multiple limbs moved in complex patterns that seemed to be part speech, part mathematical expression. "Our best scientists have worked for centuries. Quantum genetic repairs, artificial reproduction, cultural memory transfers. Nothing works." Alina watched as the hologram showed failed experiment after failed experiment. Brilliant Zereke scientists working in massive living laboratories, their hope growing dimmer with each passing generation. Entire research facilities dedicated to a single impossible goal: saving their species from slow, inevitable extinction. The problem was complex beyond human understanding. It wasn't just a genetic mutation. It was a complete systemic breakdown of their biological and cultural network. Their quantum memory system, the very thing that made Zereke unique, was destroying them. Each generation's memories were becoming more fragmented, less coherent. Cognitive abilities declined. Reproduction became nearly impossible. The connection between individual Zereke and their collective consciousness was breaking down. "We estimate," Lyrasol said quietly, "we have perhaps 3 more generations before we become extinct." Alina's scientific mind raced. She had seen complex genetic disorders before. Her parents were renowned geneticists who had worked on rare human genetic conditions. But this was something entirely different. The hologram shifted. Now it showed individual Zereke, their bodies becoming less defined, their crystal-like skin losing its intricate patterns. Each generation looked more faded, more transparent, as if they were slowly disappearing from existence. "Our entire civilization is a complex network," Lyrasol explained. "Think of it like a massive, living computer. But the system is corrupting. Each generation introduces more errors, more broken connections." Alina noticed something strange. The way Lyrasol spoke wasn't just scientific. There was emotion behind her words. Grief, hope, something that went beyond pure logic. "Why me?" Alina asked. The question had been burning inside her since their first encounter. Lyrasol's mechanical eyes focused directly on her. "Because humans are different. Your species understands something we have forgotten." "And what's that?" "Emotional healing is not separate from biological healing. They are the same thing." The hologram flickered. Generations of Zera K scientists appeared. Brilliant, logical, yet fundamentally unable to see the complete picture of their own survival. They had approached the problem with pure science, forgetting the emotional, cultural, almost spiritual aspects of healing. Elena realized she was looking at more than just a medical challenge. This was a civilizational crisis that went far beyond genetic repair. The Zera K weren't just dying. They were losing their very essence of being. And somehow, impossibly, they believed she might be the key to their survival. The medical bay of the Horizon hummed with strange energy. Belina worked carefully, her hands moving between advanced scanning equipment and the unconscious alien. Every scan revealed something more impossible than the last. The alien's body was not just a biological entity. It was a living archive. Thin, crystal-like filaments ran through her body like neural networks, but they were unlike anything in human medical records. These weren't just biological connections. They were something else entirely. A storage system, a memory network. Computer, Elena spoke softly, analyze crystalline neural pathways. The ship's AI responded with clinical precision. Preliminary analysis suggests a quantum-based biological memory storage system. Complexity beyond current human understanding detected. Elena leaned closer. The alien's breathing was slow, almost rhythmic. Each breath seemed to make the crystal-like skin pulse with a soft inner light. Her multiple irises, those strange, mechanical eyes, moved rapidly beneath closed lids. She was dreaming, or remembering. A sudden beep from the medical scanner broke the silence. Something was happening. The universal translator, which had been struggling since their first encounter, suddenly came to life. Words began to form, not just as simple translations, but as complex narrative fragments. Generations lost. The prophecy, human shape, hope, asterisk. Elena's hand instinctively reached out. The moment her skin came close to the alien's crystalline surface, something extraordinary happened. Images flooded her mind. Not her memories, not human memories. These were alien memories, vast, complex, stretching across generations. She saw a civilization unlike anything humans had imagined. Cities that were living organisms. Technology that blurred the line between biological life and machine. And underlying everything, the deep, consuming sense of loss. The Zera K, for that was the name that echoed through these memories, were dying. It wasn't a simple biological threat. This was a slow, generational extinction. Each generation became less viable, less capable of reproduction, less connected to their own cultural memory. Their quantum memory network was breaking down, and with it, their entire civilization. Elena saw their history like a vast, painful tapestry. Brilliant scientists working desperately to understand the decay. Entire generations born knowing they might be the last. A culture facing its own inevitable end. And then something different. A prophecy. An ancient record that spoke of salvation coming from an unexpected source. A being not of their world. Someone who would arrive with the capacity to understand, to heal, to reconnect what had been broken. The universal translator struggled to keep up. Asterisk. The healing species, not through technology, but through connection. Understanding beyond logic. Empathy as a fundamental force. Asterisk. When Elena's consciousness finally pulled back, she was breathing hard. Sweat covered her forehead. The alien's eyes were open. Those complex, mechanical irises now focused directly on her. "I am Lyrasol," the alien said. Her voice was musical, each word carrying multiple tones. "And you are exactly as the memory records predicted." Elena tried to speak, but words failed her. The medical scanners around them went crazy, detecting massive quantum information transfer. Something unprecedented was happening. Lyrasol's multiple limbs moved slowly, carefully. "We have waited," she said, "for someone who could see us. Not just observe, but truly see." The medical bay felt different now. No longer just a sterile human space, but a place where two impossible things were about to meet: a dying civilization's last hope, and a human who didn't yet understand the magnitude of what was happening to her. Something extraordinary was beginning. The Grand Council chamber of the Zeraka looked like a living crystal cathedral. Thousands of members sat in circular formations, their crystal-like bodies shifting colors with each emotion. Elena stood at the center, feeling every eye. Mechanical, biological, quantum, focused entirely on her. "This is madness," Council member Zorak proclaimed, his voice cutting through the chamber like a sharp blade. His body flickered between deep crimson and angry blue. "She is an outsider. Her methods are unpredictable, dangerous." Elena understood the resistance. The Zeraka were a species built on pure logic, on carefully calculated scientific approaches. Her method was different. It wasn't just about genetic repair. It was about emotional healing, about understanding loss, about reconnecting what had been broken. Lyra Sol stood beside her. "The prophecy is clear," she responded. Her multiple mechanical eyes focused on each council member simultaneously. "Traditional methods have failed. We are dying. This is our last chance." The debate had been raging for days. Elena's approach challenged everything the Zeraka believed about scientific intervention. Where their scientists saw problems to be solved with precise calculations, she saw living, breathing systems that required more than just technical solutions. Her genetic research showed something revolutionary. The Zeraka's decline wasn't just a biological problem. It was a cultural, emotional, quantum-level disconnection. Zorak brought up holographic displays showing generations of failed genetic repair attempts. Precise, calculated, absolutely logical, and completely ineffective. "Look," Elena said suddenly. Her voice was calm, but something in it made the entire chamber go silent. The holographic display changed. Now it showed the healing process from her perspective, not as a series of technical interventions, but as a living, breathing network of connections. Emotional pathways that were as important as genetic sequences. The first test subjects told the real story. Young Zeraka, who had received the new treatment, began to show remarkable changes. Their quantum memory networks weren't just repaired. They were transforming, becoming more complex, more alive. "Healing is not just about fixing," Elena explained. "It's about understanding, about creating connections that go beyond pure logic." Council member Sarah Lynn, the lead geneticist, stepped forward. Her research had been the most open to Elena's approach. "The preliminary results are beyond our expectations," she announced. "We are seeing genetic repair rates of 67%, compared to our previous maximum of 3%. The chamber erupted in a chorus of shifting colors and complex sound patterns, the Zeraka way of expressing shock and potential acceptance. But Zorak was not convinced. "One successful test means nothing," he argued. "We cannot risk our entire civilization on emotional speculation." Elena knew this moment was crucial. Everything depended on what happened next. She walked to the holographic display and began to show something different. Not just scientific data, but the emotional journey of each test subject. How their quantum memory networks were not just repairing, but evolving, creating new pathways of connection that went beyond individual survival. The breakthrough was more than biological. It was a fundamental reimagining of what survival meant. Lyra Sol's mechanical eyes locked with Elena's. Something passed between them, an understanding that went beyond words, beyond species, beyond everything they had known before. The Zeraka were about to change forever. And Elena was at the center of that transformation. The ship's alarm cut through the silence like a knife. Dr. Elena Rodriguez jolted from her half-sleep, her fingers already moving across the holographic control panel before her brain fully processed the warning. Kepler 452 bits' surface flickered to life on the main screen, a world of swirling gray and deep purple landscapes that looked more like a bruise than a planet. "Unexpected life sign detected," the ship's AI announced in its calm, emotionless voice, proximity alert, single biological entity. Alina's heart raced. After 3 years of deep space exploration, unexpected life signs were rare. Most planetary surveys ended in disappointment: endless rocks, toxic atmospheres, and silent landscapes. But something was different this time. She grabbed her standard first contact kit: a universal translator, medical scanner, protective suit, and a small collection of communication devices designed to bridge impossible gaps. The airlock hissed as it prepared her descent module. Outside, Kepler 452 b's strange atmosphere swirled with metallic particles that glinted like scattered diamonds. The landing was smooth, too smooth. Alina knew something was wrong the moment her boots touched the ground. The landscape looked both alien and familiar, rocky terrain interrupted by strange crystalline formations that seemed to pulse with an inner light. But something else was here, something alive. A movement caught her eye. 50 meters away, a figure lay partially hidden behind a large crystal formation. At first, Alina thought it was a rock formation, but then she saw it move. Breathe. "Hello," she called out, switching her suit's external speakers on. The universal translator hummed to life, ready to convert her words into any known language. No response. Cautiously, she approached. Her medical scanner worked overtime, analyzing the atmosphere, scanning for potential threats. The readings were strange: high levels of unknown radiation, atmospheric compositions that shouldn't support life. And yet life was right in front of her. As she got closer, she realized the figure was definitely not human. Definitely not like anything she had ever seen before. It was a female. At least, Alina's brain registered it as female based on some fundamental characteristic that transcended human understanding. Her skin wasn't skin at all, but something that looked like living crystal, shifting between deep blues and soft silvers. Multiple limbs were curled protectively around her body, and strange organic technology seemed embedded directly into her flesh. She was wounded. Badly. Alina's medical training kicked in. She approached slowly, hands raised to show she meant no harm. "I'm here to help," she said, knowing the translator would do its best to convert her words. The alien's eyes opened. They were nothing like human eyes. Massive, with multiple irises that seemed to rotate and shift like complex mechanical devices. For a moment, Alina felt like those eyes were looking through her, not at her. And then something unexpected happened. The alien began to cry. Not with tears like humans cry. These were sounds, musical, painful sounds that seemed to vibrate through the very ground. Sounds of grief, of recognition, of something so profound that Alina felt her own chest tighten in response. The universal translator struggled. Fragments of meaning flickered across its display. Asterisk found. Finally. Hope. Asterisk. Asterisk last. Chance. Asterisk. Asterisk. You are the one. Asterisk. Alina dropped to her knees beside the alien. Her training, her years of scientific study, her entire understanding of first contact protocols, all of it seemed to dissolve in that moment. Something extraordinary was happening, and she was right in the middle of it.